I never thought my best friend of 18 years would try to destroy my marriage, but she did. And the worst part, she almost got away with it. Let me back up. I met Sarah when I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country and I was that awkward immigrant kid who didn't speak the language, didn't know anyone, and spent most of my lunch hours sitting alone in the library. My future sister-in-law introduced us. Sarah was the same age, loud, confident, the kind of girl who could walk into any room and own it. I was the quiet one. She adopted me into her friend group, and for 18 years she was my person. We went through high school together, college, first jobs, dating, heartbreaks. She was my maid of honor at my wedding. My husband and I got married when I was 26. He was 31, stable, kind, the opposite of every chaotic guy I had dated before. We bought a little house near my parents. We had a daughter when I was 28, and by the time this happened, she was 2 years old. Life was good, work was busy but manageable. I worked in an office from 9 to 2 most days, and on my lunch break I'd usually walk the 5 minutes to my husband's office or grab coffee at a cafe near my job. Sometimes I had to travel for work, maybe once or twice a month, to another city for meetings. Nothing crazy. Sarah and I still saw each other at least once a week for our Saturday gym class, and we texted almost every day. She knew about my travel schedule because I mentioned it in passing. Just casual stuff like, oh, I have to go to Springfield on Wednesday, traffic is going to be a nightmare. So last week I had a work trip planned for Wednesday. But Tuesday night the weather alert started coming in. Red alert, flash flooding expected in the morning, severe thunderstorms, do not travel unless absolutely necessary. My employer canceled the trip around 9 p.m. I texted Sarah about it, something like, guess who's staying home tomorrow? Weather is insane. She replied with a laughing emoji and said, lucky you. Wednesday morning, my husband went out at 6 a.m. to check on his business and put up some flood barriers. By 7:30 he was back. He made breakfast, pancakes. The kind with chocolate chips that our toddler loves. We spent the whole day inside. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We watched movies, built forts out of couch cushions, played hide and seek in the hallway, normal family day. That evening around 3, Sarah texted me, are you home already? I heard it's flooding really bad where you were supposed to be. I texted back, home safe, never left actually, the trip was canceled. She said, good, stay dry. I didn't think anything of it. We literally didn't go out until Friday because the roads were a mess. Saturday morning came, gym class as usual. Sarah seemed normal during the workout, laughing at my terrible squat form, complaining about her hamstrings. But after class, she pulled me aside. We need to talk in private. Her face was serious. I felt my stomach drop. She led me out to the parking lot to my car, and then she took a breath and said, I saw your husband on Wednesday. With a woman, they were making out in his car, and your daughter was in the back seat. I don't know how to describe that moment. It was like the sound went out of the world. I stared at her. My brain was scrambling, trying to fit this information into something that made sense, but I had been home all day Wednesday. My husband had been home, our daughter had been home, we hadn't even used the car. I asked her, are you sure it was this Wednesday? She nodded. Yes, absolutely sure. What time? Around 11 in the morning. During the red alert? Yes, she said. I was driving through your neighborhood and I saw his car parked by the old park. I stopped because I thought maybe something was wrong, but then I saw them. He was in the driver's seat and she was leaning over from the passenger side. They were kissing. I saw your little girl in the back. She was playing with a toy. I couldn't believe it. She went on describing the woman, tall, blonde, super fit, looked like a Barbie doll. She told me what my husband was wearing, a blue hoodie. He does have a blue hoodie. She was so specific, so confident, I asked her a third time. You're 100% sure it was Wednesday? Yes, she said, and this time there was a hint of frustration in her voice, like I was being difficult. I thought about the pancakes, the couch cushion fort. The fact that it didn't rain until 1. The fact that my husband was making coffee when I woke up at 8. The fact that we had taken a nap together with our daughter between us at noon. And I realized in a cold, clear moment that my best friend was lying to me. I didn't say that out loud. I just looked at her and said, okay, I need to think about this. She hugged me. I'm so sorry. I knew you had to know. I would want someone to tell me. I drove home. My hands were shaking. Not because I believed her, but because I couldn't understand why she would make this up. Why would she want to hurt me? Why would she want to hurt my marriage? We had never had a fight. I had never borrowed money from her. I had never slept with her boyfriend. There was no history of jealousy, no competition for anything. I was a quiet, boring, happy wife and mother, and she was my best friend. When I got home, I didn't confront my husband. I didn't cry. I just sat on the couch and stared at the wall for about an hour. Then I called my sister. She's a lawyer. She told me to document everything, write down the conversation word for word, save the texts, don't confront Sarah yet. Wait, so I did. I wrote it all down, the exact time, the exact words, and then I started thinking. Sarah knew I was supposed to travel on Wednesday. She knew I had canceled. She knew we were home. She knew because I had told her. And yet she still walked up to me and told me this elaborate lie. She must have planned it. She waited until Saturday. She rehearsed that description. The blonde hair, the blue hoodie, the park. But here's the thing I couldn't get out of my head. What if somewhere in her messed up brain she genuinely believed that this would work? What did she think would happen? That I would divorce my husband, that I would become a single mother, that she would have more time to hang out with me, or maybe she just wanted to watch my world burn. I still don't know. The next day, Sunday, I called her. I said I wanted to talk again. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop near her apartment. I brought my phone and hit record. I know, legal gray area, but my sister advised it. I sat down across from her and said, "Tell me everything again from the beginning." She did, same story, same details. I let her finish. Then I said, "Where did you see them? Which park exactly?" She hesitated. "And on Mill Street." "And what time?" 11, I told you. "Okay," I said. "So you were driving down Mill Street at 11 on Wednesday morning during a red alert in a flood warning to go where?" She blinked. "I was just going to the store." "Which store?" "The grocery store on Main." "That's in the opposite direction," I said. "Mill Street doesn't go to Main, it dead ends at the park." She started talking faster, filling in details about errands that didn't exist. I let her dig. Then I said, "You know I was home all day Wednesday, right? My husband was home, our daughter was home, we were building forts. We took a nap at noon, I have pictures on my phone, timestamps." Her face went white, not red, white, like all the blood drained out. She didn't say anything, she just stared at me. I said, "Why?" And that's when she started crying, not sad crying, angry crying. She slammed her hand on the table and said, "You don't know what it's like, you have everything. You have a husband who adores you, a kid who's perfect, a job you love, you don't even have to try, and I'm stuck. I'm stuck in a dead-end job, I'm lonely, I'm miserable, and you just float through life like everything is easy. I thought if I could just make you doubt him just a little, maybe you'd see that your life isn't as perfect as you think. Maybe you'd need me again." I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just stood up, took my coffee, and walked out. I haven't spoken to her since. I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends briefly that we had a falling out and that I didn't want to talk about it. A few of them reached out to her and she told them I was being dramatic. But I also showed two of my closest friends the recording. They believed me. My husband knows now. He was furious at first, not at me but at her. He wanted to confront her. I told him no, I don't want any more drama. I just want her out of my life. It's been 3 weeks. I still don't know why she did it. Not really. I mean, she gave me a reason, but it feels hollow. Jealousy, loneliness, boredom. Maybe all three, maybe none. Maybe she's just someone who couldn't stand to see me happy. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who know you the longest are the ones who want to hurt you the most. And the only thing you can do is walk away and never look back. That was the end of that story, but it wasn't the end of the lies. The next one hit closer to home, way closer. I thought that was the worst betrayal I'd ever witnessed, but then I heard another story that made me rethink everything. This one came from a woman who was a doctor, an emergency medicine doctor, and she had built her whole life around her career. She met her husband when she was 25, married him at 28, and by 32 they had been through hell and back. But the hell wasn't what she expected. She told me the whole thing one night over wine after a conference, and I sat there with my mouth hanging open. She said it started about 14 months before everything fell apart. Her husband, a civil engineer, started pushing for a baby. He was passionate about hobbies and friends, but he wanted a kid. She didn't, not at first. She was finally hitting her stride at work. They had just bought their first condo, and the life they had wasn't exactly baby-friendly. But she was a coward, she admitted that. They had never really disagreed before. So she kept her mouth shut and convinced herself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice. They got pregnant. She was miserable from day one. The pregnancy didn't suit her, she said. She felt disconnected, resentful. She started therapy. Her therapist told her she was holding resentment against the baby because she was in a great spot in her career and was more worried about that than her unborn child. She worked on it. By month 6, she was genuinely excited. She and her husband were in a better place. She had worked through the attitude, the resentment that had hurt their relationship during that time. Then at 7 months, their baby was born as a stillbirth. She had horrible complications afterward, complications that made her chances of ever getting pregnant again incredibly low. She knew in her gut she was never getting pregnant. After the physical trauma, the emotional trauma, she won't lie, she felt relief. Not happiness, but relief that the pregnancy was over. And then guilt for feeling relief. She threw herself back into work. It was the only thing that made sense. Her husband grieved differently. He shut down. He didn't talk about it. He just went to work, came home, and stared at the TV. She gave him space. She thought he needed time. About 9 months after the stillbirth, he started bringing up adoption. She wasn't ready. She told him she needed more time. He said okay, but she could tell he was disappointed. Then he started talking about surrogacy. She said no. She wasn't ready to go through that process. Then he mentioned his friend, a woman from his hiking group named Emily. He said Emily had offered to be a surrogate. She was single, healthy, and wanted to help. She said no again. She told him she wasn't comfortable with a close friend carrying their child, that it would complicate things. He got quiet. Then a week later, he sat her down at the kitchen table and said, "I've been thinking, Emily isn't just offering to be a surrogate, she's offering to have the baby with me, biologically. We would use my sperm and her egg, and you would raise the child with me as our own." She stared at him. She said, "You want to impregnate your friend with your child and have me raise it." He said, "It wouldn't be my child, it would be our child, she's just carrying it, she doesn't want custody. She just wants to help." She asked him how long he had been talking to Emily about this. He said a few months. She asked if they had discussed it in detail. He said yes. She asked if he had ever told Emily that she, his wife, had agreed to this. He said he assumed she would. That was the moment she realized something was very wrong. She stood up and said, "I need you to understand that I am not okay with this. I will never be okay with this, and if you keep pushing, I will leave." He said, "You're being selfish. You're denying me the chance to be a father because you can't have kids. That's not fair." She said, "I didn't choose this. I lost our baby. I almost died. And you're talking about having a baby with another woman like it's a business arrangement." He didn't apologize. He said, "You need to think about this. We can make it work. Emily is a good person." She went to work the next day. She couldn't focus. She called a therapist and made an appointment for herself. That night she told him she needed space. He said he would sleep on the couch. She heard him on the phone later whispering. She didn't confront him. Over the next week she did some digging. She found text messages between him and Emily on his iPad, which he had left at home. The messages were worse than she imagined. He had been confiding in Emily about the stillbirth, about his grief, about how his wife was cold and obsessed with work. Emily had responded with sympathy and then slowly steered the conversation toward offering herself as a solution. She said things like, "I could give you the family you deserve and she doesn't appreciate you the way I would." He didn't shut it down. He said things like, "You're so understanding and I wish she was more like you." She took screenshots of everything. She confronted him that evening. She said, "You've been having an emotional affair with Emily. You've been planning a baby with her and you lied to me about the timeline." He broke down. He said he was sorry. He said he was just so desperate to be a father. He said he never meant to hurt her. He said he would block Emily, quit the hiking group, do anything. She said, "Why should I believe you?" He said, "Because I love you. I was lost. I wasn't thinking straight." She didn't know what to do. She loved him too. She had loved him for 7 years. She wanted to believe him, but the texts were burned into her brain. The way he talked about her to another woman, the way he planned a future without her consent. She told him she needed time. He went to therapy. He actually did block Emily. He quit the hiking group. He apologized every day for a month. She thought maybe they could work through it. Then she found out that Emily had been telling mutual friends that she was going to have a baby with him, that he had promised her he would leave his wife. She confronted him again. He swore it was a lie, that Emily was delusional, but she didn't believe him anymore. She filed for divorce 6 months later. He cried in the courthouse. He said he would never forgive himself. She said, "I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not going to be with me." After the divorce, she heard through a friend that Emily had moved away. He was alone. She didn't feel satisfied. She just felt tired. She said, "I grieved two things that year: my baby and my marriage. And I realized that the man I married wasn't the same man who tried to bring another woman into our lives. That man died with our child. I just didn't know it yet." She's doing better now. She remarried a few years later, another doctor. They have a dog and 2 cats. They tried IVF, but it didn't work. They're happy without kids. She said, "I thought having a baby would complete us, but it would have destroyed us. And losing everything showed me what I actually needed, a partner who puts me first even when life doesn't go according to plan." I think about her story a lot. It's different from the friend who tried to sabotage my marriage. That one was about jealousy. This one was about grief and how it twists people into strangers. Both are about lying. Both are about people who were supposed to love you, breaking your trust in the worst possible way. That story about the doctor and her husband, it stuck with me. Because I knew exactly what it felt like to have someone you trusted twist your life into something unrecognizable. My story is different, no stillbirth, no surrogacy talk. But it's the same kind of betrayal, the kind that makes you question every single moment you thought was real. I'm a 27-year-old guy. My husband, Peter, is 37. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 3. We have a son, Jack, who's 7. We adopted him after we got married, and I love him like he's my own blood. He is my own blood as far as I'm concerned. Peter is bisexual, and I never had a problem with that. I also never had a problem with his ex-wife, Allison. She seemed fine from what I knew. But his family, that was a different story. They're homophobic, always telling Peter he should get back together with Allison. They never accepted our marriage. I tried to ignore it for Jack's sake. 2 weeks ago, we went to his family's town for Jack's birthday. We wanted to spend it as a family with his parents and siblings. I told myself it would be fine. I'd keep my head down, let Jack have a good time. Then my mother-in-law decided it would be a great idea to invite Allison. She showed up in the middle of the party. I saw her walk in and my stomach dropped. But I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I stayed quiet. I spent the whole time with Jack, playing with him and his cousins at his request. I made sure he was happy. When it was time to cut the cake, I looked around for Peter and Allison. They weren't anywhere. I went inside the house to find them. I checked the living room, the kitchen, then I went upstairs. I found them in Peter's old bedroom. They were taking their clothes off. I stood in the doorway for a second, frozen. I saw his hands on her waist, her lips on his neck. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just walked back to the party. I cut the cake without him. I sang happy birthday to Jack. I opened presents. People were already leaving when Peter and Allison came back downstairs. He pulled me aside and he actually had the nerve to say I shouldn't have cut the cake without him present, that it was disrespectful. I stared at him and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He went quiet. His face went pale. I didn't wait for an answer. I took Jack, grabbed our bags, and left for the hotel. After I put Jack to bed, Peter showed up. He started apologizing, saying it was a mistake, that Allison had come on to him, that he was weak. I asked him point blank, was this the first time? He said yes. I didn't believe him, but I was so tired, so numb, I just told him to sleep on the couch. The next day we drove home. The drive was silent. Jack kept asking why Daddy was sad. I said Daddy was just tired. We got home and I spent the next week in a fog. I went through the motions. I took Jack to school, I went to work, I cooked dinner, but I couldn't look at Peter without seeing them in that bedroom. Then I started digging. I knew Peter's phone password. I checked it while he was in the shower. I found messages between him and Allison going back months, not just from that weekend. They'd been texting for over a year. Flirty messages, late night calls, I miss you and you were always the one. And then I found the worst part. Allison had a daughter named Lily. Lily was 14 years old and the messages showed that Peter had been sleeping with Allison for years, long before we even met. Lily was his biological daughter. He had never told me. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I confronted him that night. I said, "You have a daughter with Allison. And you've been cheating on me with her our whole relationship. How long have you known about Lily?" He broke down crying. He said he found out a few years ago after a paternity test. Allison had told him when Lily was about 10. He didn't know how to tell me. He said he was scared I would leave him. I said, "You were right, I am leaving you." He begged. He said he loved me and Jack, that Lily didn't change anything. I said, "She changes everything. You lied to me for years. You cheated with the same woman who has your kid, and you let me think we were building a family while you had another one on the side." I told him I wanted a divorce. He said he would do anything. I said I didn't believe him. I called a lawyer the next day. His family found out. His mother called me screaming that I was ruining Peter's life, that I should be grateful he even married a man. I hung up on her. Peter's father sent me a long email about how I was destroying the family. I deleted it. Jack is still adjusting. I told him that Daddy and I are living apart now, but we both love him. Peter has visitation. I don't know what he tells Jack when he picks him up. I don't ask. I found out through a mutual friend that Allison is now pregnant again. With Peter's baby. They're moving in together. I don't know if she's the side piece or I was. Maybe both. I don't scream about it. I don't cry. I just feel empty. I gave 6 years to a man who had already given his loyalty to someone else. And the worst part, I still love him. I hate myself for it, but I'm working on it. I think the hardest thing is watching Jack ask why Daddy isn't coming home. I try to explain it in ways a 7-year-old can understand. I say sometimes adults make mistakes and need time apart, but inside I'm screaming that his father chose a lie over us. I'm still standing. I'm getting a therapist. I'm focusing on work and on Jack. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again, but I'm learning to trust myself. That's the only thing I can control. That story hit me hard because it's not just about cheating. It's about how the people we love can build whole secret lives while we're standing right next to them. The doctor's husband planned a baby with his friend. My best friend tried to frame my husband for cheating. And this guy's husband had a whole secret daughter. It makes you wonder how well you really know anyone. But I guess that's the point. You don't. You just have to decide if you're willing to move forward anyway. But moving forward isn't a straight line. It's a series of moments where you have to relive the worst parts just to let them go. Let me tell you exactly what happened during the confrontation with Peter after I found out about Lily, because that's where the real story lives. I found the messages on a Thursday night. Peter was in the shower. Jack was asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed with his phone in my hands, scrolling through years of texts between him and Allison. There were photos of Lily from when she was a toddler, birthday parties I'd never heard about, late-night calls marked work emergency. And then I saw the dates. They lined up with the first year we were dating. Peter had been sleeping with her before he even proposed to me. I put the phone down and walked to the bathroom door. I knocked. He said, "Yeah." I opened the door and handed him the phone. Water was still dripping from his hair. I said, "Explain, Lily." He looked at the screen and his face went white. He didn't say anything for maybe 10 seconds. Then he said, "I can explain." I said, "Explain how you have a 14-year-old daughter with the woman you were in bed with at your parents' house. Explain how you've been lying to me since before we adopted Jack." He just stared at me. Then he said, "It was before you. I didn't know she was pregnant until after we started dating, and then I didn't know how to tell you." I said, "She's 14. That means she was born when you were 23. You've been lying for 7 years. How is that before me?" He started crying. He dropped the phone and grabbed my hands. He said, "Please, I love you. I love Jack. I'll do anything. I'll cut her off completely. I'll tell Lily the truth. I'll go to therapy." I pulled my hands away. I said, "You already had a family. I was just the backup plan." I walked out of the bathroom and went to the guest room. I locked the door. I sat on the floor for an hour staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I just felt empty. The next morning I called a lawyer. The lawyer said, "You have a strong case for divorce. He committed fraud by hiding a child and an ongoing affair. You'll likely get full custody of Jack because you're the primary parent." I said, "I don't care about the money. I just want Jack to be okay." She said, "That's the right attitude." I told Peter I was filing. He begged me to reconsider. He said he would quit his job, move to another state, do anything. I said, "You already did what you wanted. Now I'm doing what I need." He cried. I didn't. His mother called me the next day. I was at work at my desk and I saw her number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. She said, "You're destroying this family. Peter needs Allison. Lily needs her father. You're just a phase. You're not even really his husband." I said, "Your son is a liar and a cheat. And you enabled it for years. You invited Allison to Jack's birthday party. You knew what was going on." She screamed that I was going to hell. I said, "I'm already there. Thanks for the help." I hung up. I blocked her number. I blocked his father's number. I blocked all of his siblings. The hardest part was telling Jack. I sat him down on the couch. I said, Jack, Daddy and I are going to live in different houses for a while. It's not your fault. We both love you very much. He looked at me with his big eyes and said, Is Daddy coming back? I said, He'll still see you, but we won't live together. He started crying. I held him. I didn't cry in front of him. I waited until he fell asleep, then I went to the bathroom and sobbed into a towel. Peter's visitation started 2 weeks later. He picked Jack up on Saturday mornings and brought him back Sunday evenings. He always looked terrible. He tried to talk to me, but I kept it short. He had breakfast. He needs his homework done. Pick him up at 6. That was it. One time he said, I'm sorry for everything. I said, You already said that. It doesn't change anything. I found out through a mutual friend that Allison was pregnant again. I asked, Is it Peter S? She said, Yeah, they're moving in together. I felt a punch of anger, then nothing. I thought about how he'd promised me a family and now he was building one with the woman he'd been lying with the whole time. I thought about Jack, who would have a half-sibling he might not even know. I thought about how I'd never be able to trust someone again. But I'm working on that. I started seeing a therapist twice a week. I told her everything, the birthday party, the messages, Lily, the phone calls. She said, You're grieving the man you thought he was. That grief is real. It's okay to feel it. I said, I feel nothing. She said, That's part of the grief too. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. I got the house, full custody of Jack, and no alimony because I didn't want to fight for it. Peter and Allison moved into a house 3 towns over. They had a baby girl. Jack visits every other weekend. I don't ask what he does there. He tells me sometimes, Daddy has a baby. She cries a lot. I just nod. I've started dating again, casually. I met a guy named Mark at the gym. We've been on 3 dates. He doesn't know about Peter yet. I'm scared. I sat there in my car for a long time after that gym class. Sarah had walked away, acting like she'd just done me a huge favor. I didn't call my husband. I didn't text anyone. I just drove home, parked in the driveway, and sat with the engine off. My hands were shaking. I kept replaying her words. I saw your husband with a woman making out, your kid in the car. And I kept reminding myself, I was home that whole day. He was home. We made pancakes. I changed diapers. There was no cheating. So why would Sarah lie about something she had to know I could disprove? The answer hit me halfway up the stairs. She wanted me to doubt him. She wanted me to react without thinking. She wanted chaos. I walked inside. My husband was on the couch watching cartoons with our 2-year-old. He looked up and smiled. How was class? I just stood there. Then I told him exactly what Sarah said. His face went from confused to angry to cold in about 3 seconds. He said, I was here. You were here. We have proof. What the hell is she doing? I said, I don't know. But she was very specific. She described the time, the place, even said she saw the car. He put the kid down and grabbed his phone. I'm calling her right now. I said, Don't let me handle it. But he did call and Sarah picked up. I heard him say, Why did you tell my wife I was cheating on her? There was a pause. Then he said, No, I was at home with her all day. Did you see me or not? Another pause, longer this time. Then he said, You're lying and you owe us an apology. He hung up and looked at me. She said she must have confused the days, said she saw someone who looked like me. I shook my head. No, she was too sure. She confirmed 3 times. We both knew something was wrong. That night I sent Sarah a text. I know you lied. Why? She replied immediately. I'm sorry, I was jealous. You have everything I want, a husband, a kid, a good job. I thought if I made you doubt him, you'd need me more. I'm a terrible person. I stared at the screen. 18 years of friendship, and that was her explanation. Jealousy. I didn't respond. The next morning I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends what happened. Most of them believed me. 2 of them said I was overreacting, that she just made a mistake. I stopped talking to them too. A week later, Sarah showed up at my house. She was crying. She said, I never meant to hurt you. I was going through a bad time. I wasn't thinking. I told her through the screen door, You tried to destroy my marriage. You're not my friend. She cried harder. Please, we've known each other since we were kids. Can't you forgive me? I said, No. I closed the door. I haven't spoken to her since. That was 3 months ago. I hear she moved away. I don't care. But I learned something from that. Some people want you to be miserable because your happiness reminds them of what they don't have. They'll burn everything down just to feel better about their own mess. I thought that was the worst betrayal I'd ever see. Then I read the doctor's story, the one who never posted again after her husband insisted they impregnate his friend. I went back to her post weeks later looking for an update in the comments. Someone had dug into her history. Turns out the husband's friend wasn't just a friend. She was his coworker, a woman he'd been emotionally involved with for years. The moment he found out his wife couldn't conceive, he saw an opening. He didn't want a baby with his wife out of love. He wanted a baby with that coworker, and he was using his wife's infertility to make it happen without leaving her. The doctor figured it out when she overheard him on the phone with the coworker, saying, She doesn't need to know it's yours. She'll think it's a donor. That was the last straw. She filed for divorce. The comments said she eventually moved to a different state, took a job at a rural hospital, and started over. She never had kids, but she saved herself. That story gutted me because she did everything right. She went to therapy. She tried to love the baby she lost. And still her husband saw her as a means to an end. I thought about how many people live with lies like that, small lies that grow into whole secret lives, like Peter and his ex-wife. I never told you what happened after the divorce with Peter was finalized. I said I started dating Mark, that's true, but there's more to it. One night, about 4 months after the papers were signed, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Lily, Peter's daughter. She was 14 now, almost 15. She said, "I know who you are. I know you were married to my dad." I said, "Yes." She said, "I'm sorry for everything my mom told me about you. She said you were a bad person, but I looked up your name and you seem nice." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I have a little brother now, Jack. I've never met him. I want to meet him." I felt my chest tight. I said, "Lily, that's not up to me. You'd have to talk to your dad." She said, "He won't talk about it. That's why I'm calling you." I told her I'd think about it. I didn't call her back. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to protect Jack from the whole mess. Another part of me felt sorry for Lily. She was a kid caught in the middle just like Jack. But I wasn't the one who made the mess. I was just the one who had to clean it up. So I'm still here in the house I fought for with a kid I love and a new person I'm trying to trust. Mark doesn't know about Peter or Lily or the phone call. He doesn't know about the nights I still wake up and stare at the ceiling. He just knows I'm a little guarded. He says he's patient. I guess that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't end when you walk away. It stays with you. You have to learn to live with it. Some days I think I'm fine. Other days I see the way Jack looks at the door when it's time for visitation, and I remember that I can't protect him from the fact his father made choices that didn't include us. But I'm still standing. I'm still here, and that has to count for something. I sat in my car that night after Sarah's confession, thinking about how easy it is for someone to try and tear your life apart just because they're jealous. I called my husband. He picked up on the first ring. "Hey, you okay?" I told him what Sarah had said. He was quiet for a second, then he said, "I knew she was off. She's been weird around me for months, giving me looks, asking too many questions about our marriage." I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He said, "I thought I was overreacting." That line, I've heard it so many times now, but that story about the doctor, the one who lost her baby and then her husband wanted to use a surrogate who was really his friend, that one stuck with me. I found the original post late one night when I couldn't sleep. Her username was Puffy. She wrote it in Tuziarunafiv. I scrolled through the comments looking for an update. Someone said she deleted her account. Someone else said she moved. But I kept reading the original story and it was so raw I felt like I was there. She started by saying she was an emergency medicine doctor, 32 years old. Her husband was a civil engineer, 32 as well. They'd been married 4 years, together 7. She said her work was her passion. She'd wanted to be a doctor since she was 12. He was more laid back, into hobbies and friends. She loved him, but they were different. Then he started pushing for a baby. She wasn't ready. She was finally hitting her stride at work. They'd just bought a condo and their life wasn't set up for kids. But she didn't tell him that. She said she was a coward. They never really disagreed before, so she kept her mouth shut and thought, I can make it work. They got pregnant. She was miserable. The pregnancy didn't suit her. She wanted it over. She felt disconnected. She went to therapy and the therapist told her she was holding resentment against the baby because she was more worried about her career. That was true. She worked on it. By month 6, she was excited. Her husband and her were in a better place. Then at 7 months the baby was born stillborn. She had complications that made her chances of ever getting pregnant incredibly low. She knew she'd never get pregnant again. She said that after the initial shock, she felt relief. Not because she didn't want the baby, but because the physical and emotional pain was over. Then she felt guilty for feeling relief. She went back to therapy. She started to accept it. She told herself she could be happy without a biological child. They could adopt or just be child-free. She thought she and her husband were on the same page. Then one night, about a month after she got the final test results confirming infertility, her husband came home and sat her down. He said, "I've been thinking we can still have a baby. My friend Rachel, she's willing to be a surrogate. We can use your eggs if any are viable, or donor eggs, or my sperm. It'll be our baby." She was confused. She said, "Rachel, your coworker?" He said yes. Rachel was a woman he worked with. They'd been friends for years. She was single in her late 20s and had mentioned she'd be open to surrogacy for a friend. The doctor asked, "Why Rachel? Why not go through a clinic?" He got defensive. He said, "It's cheaper, it's easier, I trust her." She said, "But I don't know her like that." He said, "You don't have to, it's my friend, I'll handle it." Something felt wrong. She started paying attention. She noticed he was texting Rachel a lot, late at night. When she asked, he said they were just planning logistics, but he was secretive. One weekend he said he was going to help Rachel move some furniture. He was gone 6 hours. She called him at hour 4 and he didn't answer. When he came back, he smelled like perfume. She confronted him. He said, "We hugged." She was emotional. She said, "I'm not stupid." Then one night she overheard him on the phone. He was in the bathroom talking low. She pressed her ear to the door. He said, "She doesn't need to know it's yours. We'll just tell her it's a donor from a clinic. She'll think it's donated sperm. She'll never question it." She heard Rachel's voice on the other end, muffled. Then he said, "I love you too." She opened the door. He dropped the phone. She said, "Who's yours?" He tried to lie. She grabbed his phone and saw the texts. He and Rachel had been having an affair for 2 years. They'd been planning to have a baby together from the start. The surrogacy was just a way to make it happen while staying married to her for financial stability. She was a doctor. He was a civil engineer with student loans. He needed her income. She said she didn't scream. She just handed him the phone and walked to the bedroom. She packed a bag. He followed her, apologizing, crying, saying he'd end it. She said, "No, you've been planning this for years. You used my infertility as an excuse." She left that night. She filed for divorce the next week. The comments said she got a job at a rural hospital in another state. She never had kids, she started over. I sat in my living room reading that and I couldn't stop shaking because I knew how that felt. The moment you realize someone you trusted has been building a life behind your back and you were just a placeholder. That doctor saved herself. I wondered if she ever found peace. Probably not completely, but she survived. I closed the laptop and looked at Jack sleeping on the couch. He had a little stuffed dinosaur clutched to his chest. I thought about Peter, about the way he looked at me when I found him with Allison, like I was the problem, like I was interrupting something. I thought about the ex-wife, about her showing up to a party and taking off her clothes in his childhood bedroom while his son was waiting for cake. I thought about Lily calling me, asking to meet Jack. I still haven't called her back. I don't know if I will, but I know one thing: I'm not going to be anyone's backup plan. I'm not going to be the person who stays quiet because it's easier. I've seen what happens when you keep your mouth shut. You end up with a husband who thinks he can use you to fund his affair, baby, or a best friend who tries to break your marriage because she's jealous, or a partner who fucks his ex-wife at your son's birthday party and then asks why you cut the cake without him. I'm done being quiet. I'm done being the one who doesn't scream. I'm going to live my life for Jack and for myself, and if that means blocking everyone from my past, it means blocking everyone. I've already rebuilt once. I can rebuild again. But there was more to Sarah's story. After I confronted her in the car that Saturday, she doubled down. She gave me more details, said the blonde woman was tall, had long hair, wore a red dress. She said my husband was kissing her neck right there in the parking lot of the coffee shop near his office. She said my son was in the back seat watching. I felt sick, but I knew it wasn't true. My husband had been home with me. We made pancakes that morning. We watched cartoons. My son was in his playpen while I answered emails. There was no red dress. There was no parking lot. I didn't tell Sarah I knew she was lying. I just said, "Thank you for telling me. I need to process this." She hugged me. She smelled like cinnamon gum. She said, "I'm so sorry. I had to tell you. You're my best friend." I went home and told my husband. He was furious. He wanted to call her right then and confront her. I said no. I wanted to understand why. We sat on the couch and went through her messages. She had been texting me more than usual the past few weeks, asking about my marriage, my sex life, our finances. I thought she was just being a good friend. Now it felt like I was being studied. I called her the next day. I said, "Sarah, I need to ask you something. Why did you say you saw my husband cheating?" She got quiet. Then she said, "Because I did see it." I said, "He was with me all day Wednesday, the whole day. The red alert kept us inside. He didn't leave." Silence. Then she said, "Maybe I got the day wrong." I said, "You confirmed it 3 times. You said it was Wednesday at 1 a.m. She started crying. She said, "I don't know why I said it. I just saw him with some woman a few weeks ago and I got confused." I said, "You're lying again." She hung up. I didn't talk to her for a week. Then she showed up at my door. She looked terrible. No makeup, puffy eyes. She said, "I'm sorry, I was jealous. You have everything. The perfect husband, the perfect kid, the perfect job. I'm single. I hate my life. I thought if I could make you doubt him, you'd be more available to me. We used to hang out all the time before you got married. I miss that." I stared at her. I said, "So you tried to destroy my marriage because you wanted me to be your single friend again?" She nodded. I closed the door. That was the last time I saw her. She sent me texts for weeks, apologizing, then angry, then begging. I blocked her. I heard through mutual friends she moved to another city. Some people in our old group said I overreacted, but I know what she tried to do. She almost succeeded. If I hadn't been home that day because of the weather, I might have believed her. I might have started doubting my husband. That doubt could have poisoned everything. So no, I didn't overreact. I cut poison out of my life. That story about the doctor, I kept coming back to it. I checked for updates on her account. Someone on a forum said they knew her in real life. According to that person, the doctor did divorce her husband. She moved to a small town in Montana. She worked at a rural ER. She never remarried. She adopted a dog and volunteered at a local shelter. The ex-husband, he ended up with Rachel, the coworker. They had a baby together, but he lost his job because of the scandal at work. Rachel left him 6 months after the baby was born. He was alone, paying child support, working a job he hated. The doctor's friend said she smiled when she heard the news, not a mean smile, a relieved one, like she finally knew the universe had balance. I needed that kind of closure, but my own story was still messy. Peter kept calling. He wanted to see Jack. I said only through supervised visitation. He agreed. He came twice, sat in a McDonald's playplace with Jack while I watched from a booth. He looked tired. He said, "I made a mistake. I love you." I said, "You made a choice," repeatedly. He didn't have an answer. Then the ex-wife started emailing me. "Allison," she wrote, "I know you hate me, but I think you deserve to know the truth about Peter and me. I was 14 when we first were together. He was 24. He was my brother's friend. He groomed me. I didn't understand until later. When we got married, I thought it was love. But he was controlling. He made me feel like I was lucky to have him. I left because I finally saw a therapist who told me what he did was wrong. Now he's doing it to you. You're not the side piece. I was the victim. He's the monster." I read that email 3 times. 14. He was 24, the same age I was when I met him. I was 18 when we started dating. He was 28. I thought it was a normal age gap. Now I saw the pattern. He didn't want a partner. He wanted someone he could shape, someone who wouldn't question him. When I started standing up for myself, he found Allison again. She was still vulnerable, still under his spell. I didn't respond to her email, but I saved it. I gave it to my lawyer. The divorce proceedings changed. I asked for full custody. I got it. Peter tried to fight, but once the judge saw the email and the police records from Allison's report years ago, he didn't have a chance. Jack is safe. He doesn't have to grow up thinking his father's behavior is normal. I'm selling the house. I'm moving to a new town. I'm starting a small business. I've been going to therapy myself. The therapist asked me what I want for my future. I said I want to never doubt myself again. She said, that's a good goal. I still have nightmares sometimes. In them, I'm cutting a birthday cake and everyone is watching me. Peter walks in with Allison, both of them naked. They don't say anything. They just stand there. Then Jack starts crying and I wake up. But those dreams are less frequent now. I've started dating a little. Nothing serious. I'm not ready, but I'm not afraid anymore. The doctor in Montana, I think about her sometimes. I imagine her walking into an ER at midnight, calm and focused, saving lives. She didn't let the betrayal break her. She rebuilt. I'm doing the same. And every time I feel weak, I remember that best friend in the car lying about my husband. I remember that husband planning his affair baby. I remember that ex-wife who was once a child. And I keep walking. That's all any of us can do, keep walking. But walking doesn't mean you don't look back sometimes. A few months after I blocked Sarah, I saw her at the grocery store. She was in the cereal aisle holding a box of Cheerios. She looked thinner. Her eyes met mine and she froze. I almost walked past her, but she grabbed my arm. Please, she said, I just want you to know I'm getting help. I started seeing a therapist. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. I said, I hope you get better for yourself, not for me. She let go. I walked away. That was the last time I heard her voice. A mutual friend later told me Sarah moved back in with her parents and started a new job at a bakery. She never apologized to my husband. She never tried to explain to our friend group. Some of them still think I overreacted, but I don't care. That moment in the grocery store felt like the final page of that chapter. Around the same time, I found an old journal I kept during the divorce from Peter. I reread some entries, one from the night after Jack's birthday party. I feel like I'm watching a movie of my life. The man I loved is a stranger. I want to scream, but I can't. Jack is asleep. I just sit here. I remember typing that on my phone while Jack snored beside me. Now, years later, I can finally breathe. Jack is in first grade. He draws pictures of our new house and our dog. He asks about Peter sometimes, but not often. I tell him the truth in a way he can understand. Daddy had some big problems and he couldn't be safe for us, but we're safe now. The doctor's story stayed with me. I couldn't shake it, so I did something I never do. I looked up the small town in Montana, found a local news article about a new ER doctor who started a free clinic for low-income families. No name, but the description matched. I wrote a letter to the hospital, addressed to the ER doctor who moved from the big city. I didn't expect